Good morning, Chairman Khrushchev. How are things?
Good morning, Mr. President. We are good. Cold as usual, but potato harvest strong. Or as we call it, vodka harvest, yes.
Chairman Khrushchev, have you been placing nuclear missiles in Cuba?
Mr. President, you truly believe I would sow such distrust between our countries?
Yes.
Why would you accuse Soviet Union of such atrocity?
I have pictures.
Mr. President, you believe that Soviet Union would build nuclear missiles, place on boat, build Soviet Union military base in Cuba, point missiles at the United States, and be able to rain fire at the push of a button, and place communist Soviet Union as #1 superpower in world?
Yes.
This does not sound like something Soviet Union would do.
This is going to be a long couple of weeks.
Welcome back to the Historical Blunders podcast, where we cover the most significant events and people in history and have a damn good time doing it. I'm your host, Jake.
And I'm Nate.
And we're going to talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Missiles.
America go boom boom.
Maybe Soviet Union.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we go boom boom.
Soviet baby. We go boom boom.
So the way we're going to do this is we're first going to cover the key characters, because I think it's important to get some context into the personalities that were really running the shows in this whole crisis. And then we'll go through how it kind of got started, how it built up, and then how it really came to a point. And it's pretty tense. But to start off, we're going to go through JFK, and he did more than just get shot, right, Nate?
The damn Catholic president.
He was Catholic.
That was one of the biggest fears of him getting elected.
People didn't like that he was Catholic.
No, they thought he was going to listen to the Pope.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Like, what's the issue with being Catholic?
I don't know. And to me, it just makes zero sense to how he was the first one.
They were afraid that he wouldn't let everyone get communion.
Yeah, you're cut off. No.
I always thought that was weird.
Yeah.
Why does it matter?
Just everything that I've always read, it was just they were afraid that he would listen to the Pope more than the people.
He was so divisive as a candidate for presidency because he was so
charismatic.
He was so charismatic. He had such a gravitational way of him where people liked him. You know?
Yeah. Well, it also didn't help that he was young and semi-attractive compared to.
Oh, he was super attractive. He was like
everybody else.
So he ran against Nixon, right? And like
that ugly motherfucker.
Dude, I know. I think it's like
I'm not a crook.
So John F. Kennedy. The thing about him is when he was assassinated, he would be dearly missed, but not by Lee Harvey. But
that was a good one.
Dark humor.
That was a good one.
So the thing about him is he did come from money.
Yeah.
So he was definitely one of those pretty boys. I imagine when he was in college, he tied sweaters in a knot over his neck.
Well, that's
like
the thing
those
with
goddamn guys did.
That's the thing with the Kennedy family is they've always come from money, all of them.
But the thing is, he was a war hero. Like, he was brave. He fought in World War II. His brother actually died in World War II. And one of the big things he ran on in his campaign was establishing peace, which angered a lot of people, surprisingly.
I'm here in peace. And then people hear that and they're like, God, I gotta shoot this motherfucker.
As a war hero, what he did, he was guiding and controlling some PT ships, which are basically really tiny torpedo boats.
Yeah. Just smaller boats. I used to remember what the fuck his boat was. His boat had a name. It's gonna piss me off. Back in the day.
Goodwill Hunting.
Damn it! Yeah. No, I used to remember the name.
It's not in there right now, huh?
It's not. Nate's not smart.
Wow. How disappointing. I wrote in my notes, and his brother died in the war, which is hilarious. Like, what the fuck?
What the fuck's wrong with you?
I must have been in a weird mood.
was in a weird mood.
It's like a Family Guy type thing. It's not funny. It's very sad, and it's why he kind of advocated for peace so much. But he was young as a political person, especially for the time. Like, they didn't put presidents in place that weren't politically experienced, or inexperienced, I should say. Because, like, I looked at it, it's not like he didn't have any experience. He was still a congressman and a senator.
Yeah, he was just super young.
He was just young.
We were
right.
used to, the old fucks.
He was just very attractive, and it was kind of like,
can you pissed off old guys?
Can you trust someone that attractive to lead the country? Like, makes me nervous. Like, I Brad Pitt is a beautiful man, but I don't want him leading my country.
What about McConaughey?
Dude, McConaughey.
All right.
I think he's like. Didn't he run for governor or something?
I think there was
in Texas.
I think there was
I wouldn't not vote for him. I think a lot of McConaughey.
It was PT 109. That's the name of the boat. I feel less stupid now. But yeah, no.
You had to look it up.
I had to. It was bothering me. But yeah, McConaughey was. I think he was thinking about running for governor. He's like their unofficial governor.
Just spilled my beer all over myself.
I remember my first beer.
I'm just so nervous.
No, not Teddy again.
Yeah, no, so John F. Kennedy was also a playboy, right?
Yeah.
It's not confirmed, but it's like pretty much confirmed. Like, he was getting some action in the White House. And he was cheating on his wife. A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
My hero.
I'm going to tell Sam.
Dude.
But yeah, that's the best part is that, the White House is supposed to be, the safe place. And then he's just bringing back all these women.
It's the thing. So before really Nixon's Watergate scandal, there was not such a scrutiny on the president like there is now. Like, the president nowadays can never get away with shit.
I feel like every president in our lifetime has done something stupid.
Well, that's what I mean. There's such a magnifying glass on him now because of the Watergate scandal.
Yeah, the Watergate was the...
But I think before then it was like even FDR, right? FDR was paralyzed from the waist down, but the whole world didn't know it.
Yeah, that's why,
because the media would cooperate and not show pictures of him in his wheelchair.
Show weakness.
Yeah.
Because
it was just like a gentleman's agreement. Like, you never get away with that nowadays.
Fuck no.
But yeah, he was very close with Marilyn Monroe.
Dude.
A bunch of other women.
So attractive.
Yeah. I I only have eyes for my wife. Okay.
Me too.
She was hot.
She was hot. We can acknowledge good-looking people.
But like I said before, he largely ran his campaign on establishing peace. So it was kind of viewed from a foreign policy standpoint that he was not going to be hard on Soviet Union at such a critical time, right? Because this is
weakness.
Right. This is right after the war, and the Cold War is definitely in effect. And people were worried if you weren't tough, Soviet Union would start walking all over us.
To me, after the whole Y2K situation and everything, because hearing how, even now, how behind Russia was, it always just made me kind of laugh a little bit how we were so afraid of them.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like, oh, we probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah, there was a lot of deception going on.
Yeah. Lots of propaganda.
But the truth came out eventually, right? Eventually it's like, okay, Russia's not where the U.S. is. But other than that, he was liberal on civil rights, but he was also aggressive on establishing a lot of goals, right? He was a pretty ambitious guy.
That's what happens when you're not on your deathbed.
What?
I'm talking about all the old fucks we have as presidents.
Oh, yeah. I guess, yeah, maybe. They're like, what do you want to do, something?
What?
But he was...
You're awake before 11?
But they get everything done in the morning, And
then they nap.
And then... So...
JFK did not.
No, he was busy.
He was tired for other reasons.
Sex. He was having sex with women.
Lots of sex.
He had big goals of ending poverty And the space race was obviously one of his big things that he was pushing.
It's all a myth.
But he was really a bit of a dreamer, I would say. I think there was times, especially in this, where he would catch himself being a little brash. Like, he wasn't a stupid guy. He was definitely intelligent, but he would get ahead of himself sometimes. And I think his inexperience would show. But people would say he really kept an open mind. Because he got shot in the head.
Yeah. Multiple times.
Yeah.
Second shooter. Grassy Knoll.
Do you think it was? Do you think it was the second shooter?
I think it was, I don't know. Yeah, probably. CIA had everything to do with it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's like the only reason I want RFK to get elected. It's because he's like hell-bent on figuring out what happened to his uncle. And it's like, please just let him win just so we can find out.
Do you think he would announce it then?
Oh, yes, he would.
Be like, dude, this is what happened.
Yes.
I told you.
Like, I want to know.
They're a bunch of dicks. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, like...
An original thought.
It was common in his presidency to completely cut out the CIA, the FBI, and the military because you didn't trust them.
Yeah.
Because they were the industrial war machines.
Probably a good idea.
What do you mean?
The CIA killed him, duh.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know. I think we didn't land on the moon. You think the CIA shot him. Do you think we landed on the moon?
I don't know. I want to think so. Just so then all those poor monkeys that got shot into space didn't die for nothing. What? So yeah, JFK was... He was okay.
He was made a martyr, I would say. I also think he was weak on foreign policy. And I do think he let the dog in the house when it comes to the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, you kind of can't let stuff happen like that.
We'll go into exactly kind of how that happened, but... So that's JFK, right? So we covered the pretty boy JFK. Now, it's cool because alternately, Nikita Khrushchev is the chairman of the Soviet Union at the time. And he's like almost like the yang to the yin on JFK. So the way that he came up was he was a metal worker and completely just got into politics through a friend and just worked his way up.
We talked about that. Like that was the way to get into politics in Russia.
Yeah, the only way you get in is by knowing someone or being family.
Yeah, the Chernobyl episode.
Yeah, Chernobyl. If you want to check that out, we do mention a little bit about how you get started in politics in the Soviet Union and some of the culture differences, you would say,
yes,
from the U.S. But he got in, and really he was a high caliber person, right? He was very ambitious. He was very cunning, and because of that, he was able to climb the ranks and kind of rise to the top, and actually even got to Stalin, right when Stalin was in power. And Stalin would take him aside and like for private meetings and chats, and really kind of like took him under his wing eventually, and like was like, "Hey, this is how you do stuff."
Yeah. What do you think they said in those chats?
It probably was just Stalin being like, "You got to kill them all, dude." if you question anyone, you got to kill them.
If someone questions you, what do you do? Kill them.
So eventually, when Stalin died, Khrushchev was able to take power and become the new leader of the Soviet Union. So he did use Stalin's method of like dividing and conquering enemies and replacing them with like his people, but he didn't kill people like Stalin did. Like you think about Stalin, he was like Dr. Evil with like the moat of like
the freaking sharks with the freaking laser beams on their freaking heads.
Yeah. And he had the button where people would go like, for Khrushchev, he was the same way, except the button would like push them into like being the ambassador of Mongolia.
And nobody wants that.
It's almost like, dude, just kill me.
At this point, yes, give me the shark pit.
So he wasn't like evil, but he was like the cousin of Hitler. Right? Like he was around evil people. He wasn't great.
So
but
he had his tendencies.
Like, just be glad it's not his cousin.
Yeah.
But he was like...
That's a very good way of putting it.
Thank you. Well,
thank you.
he was a devout believer in communism, though. Like to his grave. Like, it was how the world should be in his eyes.
Yeah. That is one thing I know. It sounds terrible. I'll give props to commies for. They will go to the grave stating how awesome communism is.
Yeah, I mean, he thought that no matter what, eventually, condominiums are important and you should wear them.
Nah. Takes the fun away. Where's the sensation?
He thought that it was only time until communism would take over the globe, because it was such a better system than capitalism.
Yeah.
Good for him.
It worked out so great.
He also put like these crazy goals in place, like JFK did. Like, he wanted the Soviet Union to be like the number one in global policy and global production for food and all this. Like, he completely wanted to take over the West.
In all honesty, though, I feel like every leader wants that as a goal.
That's true.
We want to be great.
We want to be number 3. But we want to really good number 3.
We only have 30% of our country that's able to actually grow anything. Everything else is frozen.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. No one wants to be number 2. But during his, I guess, reign as the leader of the Soviet Union, they did make a lot of progress. And I think in history, this was the closest that the Soviet Union got to challenging the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they had Sputnik,
Yep.
which was like clear as day the number one thing that they had over the U.S.
Yeah. Because that Sputnik was the first satellite, wasn't it?
Yep, it was the first orbiting
satellite.
Yep. Getting to orbit is really hard, and the fact that they were able to do it was pretty
Scared the shit out of the U.S.
Yeah, the whole U.S. had to be like, oh, shit, they're ahead of us. So there's this CIA personality profile on Khrushchev, and it's a little long, but I do want to read it because it paints a good picture of who he is and kind of how he ticks.
All right. Once upon a time, Khrushchev began. There was 3 men in a prison, a social democrat, an anarchist, and a humble little Jew. A half-educated little fellow named Pina.
They're so tiny. And half-educated.
And digging tunnels.
Digging tunnels.
They decided to elect a cell leader to watch over the distribution of food, tea, and tobacco. The anarchist, a big burly fellow, was against such a lawful process as electing authority. To show his contempt for the law and order, he proposed that the semi-educated Jew, Pina, be elected. They elected Pina. Things went well, Khrushchev continued, and they decided to escape. But they realized that the first man to go through the tunnel would get shot by the guard. They all turned to the big, brave anarchist, but he was afraid to go. Suddenly, poor little Pina drew himself up and said, "Comrades, you elected me by democratic process as your leader, therefore I will go first." Moral of the story, Khrushchev explained, was that no matter how humble a man's beginning, he achieves in stature of the office to which he is elected. Sorry, it's so far away. The little Pina, he concluded, that's me. It did reveal much about Khrushchev's mental reflexes, his consciousness of his humble origin, a frequently reiterated theme, his sense of personal accomplishment, confidence that his vigor, initiative, and capacity are equal to his station, which had enabled him to gain the upper hand in the series of rivals that underrated him.
Dude, and if you've seen pictures of him, he's like one of the ugliest people I think I've ever seen. He's so ugly.
Not everybody's meant to be cute.
I know. I was going to say he looks like you.
Yeah, it happens.
On the theme of just me being... He looks like me, is what he looks like.
Yeah, because you're ugly as fuck.
He looks like... That's rude. All right.
I don't know. So, I think I'm more Fidel.
We're going to do some... I forgot to give you the Christmas present I was supposed to give you. And it's like 3 episodes late. But hold on a second. We're gonna do something here. My mommy got it for you.
It's a coffee cup with our ugly faces.
And we're holding each other on a moped.
It was one of the best days of my life. Thanks, Kathy.
All right, our last character is Fidel Castro,
God, I love fucking Fidel Castro.
which I can't stop picturing him like the guy. What's the guy's name?
Are you thinking from The Dictator?
Dude, yeah. I can't stop. Like, it's so bad, but I can't stop picturing him like that because, like, even the pictures of him,
Yeah, the beard.
look like Sacha
It's the
Baron
beard.
Cohen.
It's the beard.
Dude,
He's like a better looking Sacha Baron Cohen.
and he's a dictator.
He isn't that bad of bad looking of a dude because he got down a lot too.
Did he?
Yeah, so
I didn't know this.
the CIA tried killing him so many times. So like they did so much stupid shit just to try to kill him. And one of the things they did was they got like this famous actress to like get close to him, but she fell in love with him and was like, I can't do it. And he's like, she had the gun and he's like, fucking kill me.
That's how me and my wife met.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
You dressed up like Fidel.
I had a big beard.
But yeah, dude.
I overthrew a government.
He was the revolutionist.
He was.
Because the thing is, the leader before him was Batista. Not the wrestler.
I had to read that a couple times because I was like, is that right?
Batista?
Now I'm picturing Sacha Baron Cohen in the ring.
With Batista.
Batista.
It's essentially what happened. But the thing is with, Fulgencio Batista was the dictator before him. He was not a big fan of him. A lot of people weren't. The United States was not. Because that was one of the big things they were trying to do was get rid of him. And then Fidel actually, I didn't know he was so educated. I thought he just kind of like...
That's surprising.
Yeah, I just thought he kind of popped up. But yeah, he went to law school. I mean, University of Havana. The only thing I'm picturing is Bacardi.
Is there an asterisk on there, though?
There's not. He said he graduated.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, he participated in resistance movements in the Dominican Republic and Colombia. Then he got very active in Cuban politics after he graduated from law school, which I'm like, damn, not bad.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the leader of Cuba for a long time.
Well, that's because he eventually established himself dictator.
Well, it's because he was a dictator the whole time.
But yeah, so he was actually running for legislative office in 1952. And then those elections were canceled because Batista seized power and was like, I'm in charge now.
He had a walkout song and everything.
Batista. I feel like it'd be a lot of horns. Latino-y. Yeah. Maybe an accordion. But
you ever watch Vivo?
What?
Vivo?
What's that?
It's a Netflix movie that's got Cuban music in it. It's for kids.
Oh, no.
You guys don't watch that shit yet. You don't have to.
We don't have to.
Dude, don't watch that shit if you don't have to. Eventually, all you're going to do is watch kids shows.
We watch Bluey.
Yeah, don't do that. You don't need to watch Bluey yet.
I like Bluey.
Ellie is only one.
I like Bluey.
Dude,
it's not for my baby. It's for us.
She's not even one yet, is she?
She's not even one.
I keep thinking she's one.
Yeah. It's because she's so mature. Because, she's flipping us the bird.
What?
Doing backflips.
Smoking pot.
Yeah.
Under the bleachers.
Hanging out with the burnout crowd.
Eventually.
That's just me and her mom. All right, so yeah, back to Fidel. Fidel organized the resistance move against Batista, led a bunch of ill-fated attempts, and then finally his guerrilla warfare. Gotta love good old guerrilla warfare.
What did he do that was so bad as a dictator? Did he kill people like Saddam Hussein?
I think he did. And I think he just kind of fucked the whole country because he was just like, fuck you, world. I don't care that my country's basically stuck in the 1950s.
All right, it's time to move on. So that is the characters. We cover Mr. Khrushchev. We cover Mr. Kennedy. We cover Mr. Castro, right? Now we're going to get into how did this whole thing get started, right? So the Cuban Revolution happened, like you said, in 1959, and that put Castro into power. And naturally, he was an ally to Communist Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, I'm on the Soviet Union side because I need their money and fuck the U.S.
Well,
basically.
he wasn't too happy with the United States anyways.
Well, and the United States was not too happy with him because they did a bunch of shit to try and overthrow him. And the most embarrassing, right? I think you had covered it before in the show. But the Bay of Pigs in 1961 was awful.
Yeah, it was such a horrible attempt.
It was not a good try.
No.
It was like you know how you should really whole ass stuff when you do it? He really half-assed.
It was very half-assed. I think it would have been a lot more effective if we actually just used the military.
Right, and it
Not
started
CIA.
It really started to build a case around JFK that he did not have good foreign policy, and he was kind of a bitch when it came to, you know, establishing the U.S. as a superpower in the world. He was not very good at it, right? Because at the time, the U.S. had nukes in Italy and Turkey, and because of that, they had such power over everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like, we got the big boom boom sticks, and y'all can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, we're the only country to use them.
Right. So we had a gun pointed at everyone's head. Pretty much we could do whatever we wanted.
Yeah. That's what, after dropping those bombs, we were the military superior.
Right. No one wants to mess with that. So then also the summit of Vienna happened, and that was basically it was like, you know, it's a world summit, leaders get together. And in that summit, JFK, for some reason, I don't know how these things go. I don't go to them very often.
We weren't at the last climate summit.
No, but they debate politics between especially John F. Kennedy and Khrushchev, who is the chairman of the Soviet Union, right? And I think this is where JFK's brashness comes into play, because he thinks he's going to go in there and be like, dude, capitalism is the best, and you can't convince me otherwise. You stupid commies are stupid.
He was a very arrogant guy when it came to his debates and stuff like that.
Right, and I think Khrushchev is like undeniably cunning and smart, and he doesn't rise to the top of the Soviet Union unless you're a high caliber person.
And another thing is, I think that, like, here in America, we think communism doesn't work and that capitalism's the best. There, they think the opposite. And, obviously there's something behind it that's going to make it seem like it works. And so having Khrushchev being such a smart man, like, just knowing the fundamentals of communism and all that, like, I don't know, I think...
And honestly, being more experienced at arguing.
Yeah.
Right? He probably went through a lot more shit politically than JFK did.
Yes.
So I think he took...
from money, kind of...
Daddy can't save you here.
Grow up as a fucking metal worker.
Right. And I think it caught JFK by surprise.
In the fucking Soviet Union, I couldn't only imagine the conditions.
So the important thing is they left that conversation with JFK kind of feeling like he didn't win, and Khrushchev definitely feeling like, all right, this president of the United States is someone I can take advantage of.
Yes.
As far as foreign policy goes.
I have the upper hand.
I have the upper hand. It's time for Soviet Union to establish dominance, right? Which is part of the stupid skit we did at the beginning. But, so, there's that happens. Because of that, one thing that happens that's critical is Khrushchev and JFK strike a deal. And basically, the high level, Khrushchev gives some concessions to Berlin, because Berlin at the time was divided in East and West Berlin, right? Soviet Union controlled one side, the U.S. controlled the other side. It was like this weird...
It was such a weird dynamic there.
Yeah, and a lot of Kennedy's focus was showing dominance on that front, and that's how you show, how strong you are with foreign policy. So essentially Khrushchev gave some concessions, but he also said, we'll do that as long as you stop searching all my ships that are going to Cuba.
Yeah.
But first, a word from our sponsor.
Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human who lives in a world who is going through a hard time. Therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com.
That's right, Nate. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. Yeah, I'm really glad we chose BetterHelp as a sponsor for this podcast because I've had people in my own life that have struggled with mental health and anxiety and depression. And therapy was something that definitely helped them overcome those struggles. And now they're in a much better place.
Yeah, I mean, I use BetterHelp, and so far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really talking about you.
Oh.
BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days.
And sometimes faster. It only took a couple hours for me.
That's right. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in our description. It's betterhelp.com/historicalblunderspod.
All one word.
That's right. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, so you can connect with a therapist and get the support that you need.
And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost, without stressing about insurance, who's a network, or anything like that.
So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/historicalblunderspod.
And that's betterhelp.com.
And Kennedy was like overexcited because he thought that was a
win for him.
Right, it's a landslide trade. Landslide. Too much beer. Landslide trade where he's like, I'm getting the best out of this.
Yes, I have the upper hand in this, and not really.
And it's funny because Bobby Kennedy, who's like John F. Kennedy's brother and his top advisor, was really against that agreement. He was like, dude, John, you should not do this. And John was like, no, dude, Berlin, man, woo. And so he did that, and basically it let Khrushchev get the ability to bring missiles into Cuba, right?
Yeah. Missiles,
so
soldiers.
One of the quotes that Khrushchev has on JFK to his advisors was, this guy is too young, intellectual, and not prepared well for decision-making in crisis situations. He's too intelligent and he's too weak. So like that's how he came away from talking to the guy.
Yeah, having that kind of confidence.
Right. They started to have suspicions that there was missile bases in Cuba, right, in like early 1962. And they started telling like JFK, like, hey, I think that they're moving stuff into Cuba.
Yeah.
And he just kind of was like, there was such a focus on the midterm elections that he was like, it's fine. We'll take care of it later.
Well, what I saw was that there was a Russian spy that basically like leaked all of Russia's like nuclear plans to him. So like how they'd house stuff, how stuff was built and everything. And so that's like kind of what they started seeing in.
Really? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And then, but they actually eventually caught the guy and supposedly executed him in Russia.
Oh,
Soviet Union. But
wow.
Yeah.
So they got a sign that this is what would happen, and it started happening, and they were like, well,
this dude was like their spy and was like, here's the missiles they know how to make. This is how they work. This is what they build to house them. This is what. And so eventually they started seeing that stuff and was like, what's going on down there?
Yeah, because eventually a U-2, which is like a reconnaissance aircraft that the U.S. used, because at the time, right, satellites did not exist. So the only way to get pictures of something is fly a plane over it.
I could only imagine how shitty those fucking pictures were.
I agree.
How grainy and shitty pictures were of just stationary things back then.
And I think how risky, too, flying those planes. Because it's not like, because of how shitty the cameras are, you can't, like, fly insanely high. Like, it's kind of like, hey, you see that plane up there? That plane's going to tell on us. Let's shoot it down, you know?
So the spy was Oleg Penkovsky.
Oh.
That's a cool name, Oleg.
That was the American pilot's name?
No.
Oh.
No, this was the guy that was like, embedded with the Russians that leaked all the plans and everything.
Oh, that was the spy. Interesting. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. So on the 16th of October, the 16th of October, the president was notified. It's kind of funny because the CIA knew the night before, and for some reason they were like, we'll tell them in the morning.
We'll sleep on it.
We'll let them sleep like one more time.
But another thing is the pictures that came back from that U-2 plane supposedly were authenticated and gone through above a old Buick dealership too. The CIA had like a reconnaissance office above an old dealership, used car dealership.
That's where they looked at him?
In like some buttfuck part of DC.
That's kind of
like, I feel like the CIA back then was just like, oh, there's a space for rent? Let's get it.
I mean, I guess if that works.
'Cause, I mean, that was like the whole thing with like MK Ultra. Like, it was just like random fucking places.
So, anyways, they told Kennedy, right? Hey, man, Cuba's got some nuclear missiles you should be worried about. And not only that, they were able to determine that the missiles were not operational. They were about 10 to 14 days out of being ready to use, from what they could see, right?
Thanks to the plans.
So it basically meant like, all right, the next 2 weeks is going to be a shit show, and we're going to have to argue with Russia, or Soviet Union, I should say.
Yeah.
And that's really what happened to lay the land for how this crisis came about. So the next thing that happened was basically JFK had two decisions to make, right? Or I guess it's one decision, two options. One,
yes.
And I think the most obvious, right, is to have an airstrike where he bombs the nuclear bases, and then he invades and takes over, make sure he cleans out the whole place, right? That's one option. The other option is to do a naval blockade, or a quarantine, as they call it. And that's a lot more passive way of doing stuff. And his whole support team, like CIA, the industrial war people, crazy generals, they all wanted to do an airstrike.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's... And even me, right, thinking about it, the bases weren't operational yet. And it's like, wouldn't you just want to take them out and like eradicate
to me, the
concern?
airstrike would have been a far superior idea.
Yeah, I mean,
the only thing is, I mean, what are we gonna do with the frickin' island in the Caribbean? Call it Puerto Rico.
What about them? They don't have missiles.
How do you know? They're U.S. territory. Of course they got missiles.
Well, yeah, but there are missiles.
But yeah, I don't know. The whole thing is, I don't know. It had to have something. It had to have been some kind of reason why JFK didn't want to do that.
I mean, I think,
especially if your advisors said that like the missiles weren't operational yet, it would have just been so easy, just boom, done.
It's one of those things like I get. So in the end game, it came out in the best way. This whole thing came out in the best way possible in the long-term end game.
Yeah.
However, I can't look at each step and be like, dude, we shouldn't have just blown. Like,
what the fuck was happening?
Because, yeah, we'll get in.
It's just a snowball effect.
We'll keep rolling here. But basically, the military advisors were all like, dude, do the airstrike, and JFK was like, no, we're gonna do a blockade. That's what he decided. So he did have to broadcast to the public at that time, because that's the only way it could then go to Khrushchev and the Soviet Union to notify them, like, hey, if you guys send ships, we're going to blockade them and send them back home.
Yeah.
So that they didn't just, like, think they were getting attacked.
Yeah.
Right.
But they were allowing in, like, food and medicine.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. So they would only search for offensive items.
Yeah. Humanitarian efforts.
Right. Right. So it wasn't a blockade either. So, because technically a blockade is an act of war. It was a naval quarantine.
Yeah.
They call it with asterisks.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so obviously the Soviet Union was not so happy about it. They made a statement saying, if you weigh the present situation with a cool head without giving way to passion, you will understand that the Soviet Union cannot afford not to decline the despotic demands of the USA, and that the Soviet Union viewed the blockade as an act of aggression, and their ships would be instructed to ignore it. So they were like, hey, we're going to go anyways, and you're going to have to shoot us down. And this was like the big concern, right? You have this moment now where the ships are coming from the Soviet Union, right? And then they go to the blockade point, and then if they keep going, is the U.S. going to shoot them down? Or are they going to let them pass? Or, like, what's going to happen? Fortunately, right, the Soviet Union still sends ships with missiles in them and actually have submarines there also accompanying them. And they get to the blockade, and they stop.
Little side note, they actually kind of show this, the tensions and stuff in the X-Men movie. It's X-Men First Class.
Do they? I don't remember
so.
that.
Where, like, Professor X is the young guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're, like, in the...
McEnroe or whatever his name is.
Yeah. But, yeah, they're, like, in the Caribbean, and there's the blockade. And then he throws the submarine. Magneto uses a submarine.
I only watch old X-Men movies.
Oh, Hugh Jackman. Big fan. Is that you?
Oh, he's so sexy.
Yeah, so I always thought that was kind of cool. I like when movies do that. Slight glimpse of history.
Sprinkle in a little history.
Where it's like, oh, hey, that is cool. But then it's like, but there wasn't mutants there.
So essentially the Soviets got up to the blockade. They stopped. And there was like this crazy moment where the U.S. was like, dude, are they getting ready to fire at us?
Do you think they were like on the decks of the ship, like, you know, that like, hey, what's your name? Tony. Fuck you, Tony. Do you think that was happening, but in Russian?
Yeah, like, what is he talking about?
It's like,
what does Spritsyan mean?
They sound very angry. Are they going to fight us?
No, but thankfully the Soviets then turned around and went home.
Dude, right? That had to have been the shittiest travel ever. You waste all that time to get there, and it's like, all right. Oh, all right, let's go home.
Because I imagine that they were, you know, contacting Moscow, and Moscow's like, just turn around and come home. And they were like, what? It smells like bitch in here.
Do you think they used the Panama Canal? There's like casually
Is
letting...
it faster that way?
Yeah, well, that's why it was built.
Oh.
Otherwise, you have to go all the way down around South America.
Oh, shit, you're right.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if they just like, or was sitting like submarines just like at the lock, just like waiting for its turn, like, all right.
They're like, God damn it.
This isn't going to end well, because I'm pretty sure the United States was there, like, doing it.
But that's really how the situation started heating up, right? And now we're going to get to the critical 2 days.
So, October 26th, early that morning, USA U-2 flight was shot down.
Boom!
Kaboom.
So this is especially where I get to the point where, like,
you couldn't be flying that high.
Well, not that. More like, I can't believe they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because even after a U.S. flight pilot was killed over Cuba by a Soviet airstrike missile, the U.S. was, like, still sat on it.
Yeah, so that's where I think that, like, if Nixon would have won that election...
Yeah.
The world probably would not be here anymore.
So for sure. But I don't know if he would have let the missiles in Cuba. I would make that argument.
That is true. He probably would have
He would have been smart enough to prevent it.
But also at the same time, like, yeah, like if it did happen though, like that's the one thing that always worries me about all the unstable people running our world is I'm just waiting for someone to, I mean, look at fucking North Korea right now. He's been launching so many missiles everywhere, and people are just like, shit.
Yeah. So, and especially at this point on October 26th, right? This is 10 days after Kennedy found out. Like, a lot had happened. We kind of skipped over because there was a lot of, like, negotiating going on that frankly didn't get anywhere. There was no action. And now we get to the point where it's 10 days later. And I think important context is that the Soviet Union likely had some active missiles at this point. Yeah. At least some.
Something that was able to at least shoot down a fucking airplane.
And they were at least brave enough to shoot down a U-2 recon aircraft, which also, the story of that, too, is the lieutenant in charge made that call without going up the chain.
Oh.
He did not ask Khrushchev, like, hey, there's a U-2 aircraft, and they were going over Guantanamo Bay, and they had a bunch of, strike capabilities around Guantanamo that they didn't want the U.S. to find out about, and that's why they shot it down. But the lieutenant acted on his own, and also he had heard Castro's speech that morning, which, at this point, Castro's in batshit crazy mode, and he gave his speech like, all right, we're probably all going to die, and we all need to get ready to fight the U.S. And it was a very emotional, dramatic speech that even inspired a lot of the Soviet officers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously you're going to have that a little bit of confidence when you think you got nuclear weapons.
Dude.
I mean, going after your enemy.
Right. We're the same now.
Essentially, yeah.
So JFK really started to think, like, all right, an invasion is probably going to happen at this point. And we're going to need to do an airstrike. And things really are spiraling out of control. Like, imagine the pressure he started to get now from his military advisors. They're like, dude, you need to go in there and do something.
Yes. We told you to, and you ignored us, and now look what happened.
So actually, what starts to happen, though, later in the day, is JFK starts to put this plan in motion of doing an invasion. And what's critical is he doesn't do it secretly. He kind of announces it to his team enough where Soviet spies are going to find out and they get that information. And he did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Because he wanted Khrushchev and the Soviet Union to
be
know,
like, fuck.
Shit's going down now because you guys shot down one of our planes, as a means of trying to get some kind of response from the Soviet Union to de-escalate this. And actually, it's brilliant because that's exactly what happened. That night is super critical. Khrushchev telegraphed a message directly to JFK's administration, and it was a long, like, weirdly emotional, is like one of the accounts that they have about it. And it was very much...
I love you so much.
Well, so what they say is that they could tell it was written by someone who was in a very stressed out state, which I'm sure he was, right? The real truth to this is it wasn't just the U.S. that wanted to prevent a nuclear war. Like, Khrushchev is not that Stalin kind of guy where he's like, let's blow him up. He's also like, I don't want a nuclear war either. That would suck.
Well, yeah, because didn't they estimate like an all-out nuclear war would, like, a third of the population or something like that?
Yep. A third of the world's population is the estimate for,
back then, nuclear war.
Which would have been pretty bad.
Yes.
So, in that letter that Khrushchev wrote to JFK, he said, all right, if you guys promise not to invade Cuba and you leave Cuba alone, we will take away our missiles. Because it's also part of, like, Russian culture, too, where they don't see... It's weird. They don't see putting missiles in Cuba as, like, a direct offense to us.
Like a direct act of war.
Yeah, in the Russian culture, like, showing your power and dominance is not the same as being rude.
Yeah.
The Russian culture is different than the American culture. Like, they're like, what? If we can do this, why shouldn't we do this? We should be our right to do it.
In their defense, we also did have nukes in
100%
in Italy and Turkey pointed
100%.
at them.
Totally hip, and it comes into play especially later on. But it's insane because we had nukes right at them, and then they go to put nukes in front of us. And if they had been fully operational from the start, I think it would have been a very different conversation.
Yeah.
But the fact is that they weren't quite ready yet, so it was like this weird transitory situation.
We lucked out.
So essentially, JFK got that message and it was like, fuck, we'll just leave Cuba alone, take the missiles away, Jesus.
Yeah.
And basically a big kind of sigh of relief came through the administration.
Yeah.
And we'll take a break from that, and we're going to go into our next segment, a little bit of trivia. I believe it's time for trivia.
How bad did that hurt your voice?
Not that bad. It was actually, when you do Screamo, you have to do it kind of quiet. So it doesn't, like, they say make the microphone do the most work. But I don't even know if it's legible. We'll see.
I heard trivia.
Well, you guys let us know if you think it sounds like shit.
I also listen to a lot of heavy music, so
yeah, I imagine it's not for everyone.
Jared will appreciate this.
It's a little bit obnoxious and a little bit heavy, and just like us, just like my belly button.
Obnoxious and heavy. What
All
we're
right.
good at.
Let's get to trivia though. So number 1, I got my first question: who met with the Soviet ambassador to negotiate the final terms of the agreement?
Tom Hanks.
Maybe in the movie. Was there a movie? There was a movie about this. I watched
Bridge
it.
No.
Bridge to Terabithia. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
She gets stuck in the water. Yeah.
No, isn't
She died.
Something about a bridge, I feel like.
13 Days is what I watched.
13 Days?
Yeah. It's a good movie about this whole situation.
Because it only lasted 13 days.
Do you have an answer or not?
No.
Bobby Kennedy.
I fucking knew that.
Yeah, you should have known that. That was supposed to be an easy one. So the Soviet ambassador to the Soviet Union, right, is in Washington, D.C. And the only person that John Kennedy trusted to bring the final terms of the agreement, which we'll go through in a little bit, was his brother, right, Bobby Kennedy, which makes a lot of sense. I trust my brother. Sometimes.
I'd trust... Fuck, I have so many siblings.
Here's a question. The Soviet had around 50% of the nukes that the U.S. had. True or false?
True.
False.
They had more, didn't they?
So the Soviet Union had less than 10%.
Oh, even less.
10% less than the nukes that the USA had at the time.
Damn.
Which goes into our conversation before about the U.S. really was way far ahead. And the Soviet Union was not.
I gave them more credit.
So the U.S. had about 3,500 nukes at that time, and the Soviets only had around 300. So they definitely lied, and
Can't trust them? What?
So here's a hard one. You're not gonna get this one.
Ooh.
Which country, apart from the United States and the Soviet Union, played a crucial role in mediating the resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis?
United Kingdom.
No.
France.
No. It's gonna take you. Let's do this. This is gonna take a long time. Go. How many countries do you know? It would surprise you.
Germany.
No, it was not in Europe.
Oh, not in Europe. Brazil.
Nope.
China.
Nope.
Japan.
Nope.
Saudi Arabia.
Nope.
India.
Nope. Nowhere in Asia. Nowhere in Africa.
So, South America. Ecuador.
No. No. All right, North America.
Canada.
Yeah.
Fucking Canada.
And then they pissed off a bunch of truckers.
Yeah. God damn it. Of all the fucking countries. Did they just like show up with some like waffles with some really good fucking maple syrup? Or they're like, guys, fucking relax, eat a waffle. Here's some poutine.
We put this maple syrup under government control. That's how good this is. So long story short, Canada was a mediator between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. So they helped to relay a lot of messages and help them work through their little mommy-daddy issues. Basically.
That's cool. Good for you, Canada.
Yeah, so actually both sides thanked Cuba.
Cuba, Canada's little brother.
They thanked Canada quite a bit afterwards. My last question. What was the name of the secret operation to overthrow the Cuban government?
Oh, fuck. It's like Operation, like, it starts with an A.
No?
No. I thought it was like Alto.
It was in effect before the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, because they want to get rid of Batista.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they didn't like the whole dictatorship. The U.S. was all queasy about communism.
I swear it was an A. I'm stuck on an A. What is it?
Operation Mongoose.
Oh, that is not what I read.
Yeah, you read wrong.
I probably read something. I thought it was like Alfonso or something like that.
All right, I lied. I have one more.
One more. Okay.
What was the duration of the Cuban Missile Crisis from the discovery of the missiles to their agreed upon removal?
13 days.
Which is what I said earlier.
I knew that one. Because that was
a bad question when I mentioned the movie.
I at least got one. No, that was one thing that I was always curious about. That I guess I never really looked up.
Yeah.
Until now. But I'm like, how long did it really last? And I saw that. I was like, that's very disappointing. But at the same time, those 13 days had to have been super fucking stressful.
Oh yeah, and I think it's almost like not a lot happened except for the last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah,
the blockade was a big deal, and the Soviet Union turning around was a big win, right? Other than that, not a lot happened, right? But we should say, so that's trivia, right? Going back to the timeline, and on Black Saturday.
One second. I have a trivia question for you.
All right. Go ahead, Dad.
What kind of what color shirts did they make Russians wear to sneak soldiers into Cuba? What kind of shirts?
What kind of shirts or what color shirts?
Pattern.
Wait a second. There's so many different what pattern of shirts?
Yeah, I'll give you a pattern. Because I read it and I'm like, of all things, what the fuck?
Was it like a plaid shirt?
Yeah, it was a checkered shirt. They just put checkered shirts on soldiers and snuck them into the country.
So apparently Cuba was like, all right, you're checkered. Come on, come right in.
No, that's United States just oh, they're wearing checkered shirts? Oh, yeah, they're definitely not soldiers. What is up with us saying shoulders instead of soldiers? Fuck you, Zach.
They're definitely not arms or hands. Yeah. Anyway, so that takes us out of trivia, and we'll go back to the timeline, and really, what's called Black Saturday, which is October 27th.
It was not a shopping day.
It was not a shopping day. It was a hey, we might all die day.
Yeah.
So the next day, because remember, JFK had gotten the letter from Khrushchev saying, "All right, we'll pull our missiles if you promise to stay out of Cuba." Right, which was America's fuck.
Which I think is kind of noble.
Oh yeah,
because United States could have just rolled in there and fucked Cuba.
Right,
and the Soviet Union could have been washed our hands of it. We're halfway across the fucking world.
You can tell the whole time through this whole thing, each side is being so careful of escalation.
They were trying to be diplomatic, but not at the same time.
Which thankfully both sides were.
Yeah.
Right? So
the whole reason is, like I said, it's kind of hypocritical because we had nukes.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's why even put nukes there in the first place then? If you didn't want to escalate something.
Right.
Putting them there was an escalation.
Right.
But true. Also, like I said, hypocritical because we did have nukes.
Right. Absolutely. For sure. So the next day, what's critical is the U.S. gets another letter from the Soviet Union, and this one says, hey, forget about yesterday. So we will take our missiles away if you leave Cuba alone, and you take away your missiles in Italy and Turkey. And now the U.S. is like, well, shit. We can't do that. Basically, all the allies in Europe would have such an issue. JFK would look so weak if he came into office and then he pulled the missiles that really gave him such leverage, right, in the whole world. It really was something he couldn't do, right? Which is a shame, right? Because it would have de-escalated everything. But
it would just ended it then and there.
Right. They could have just said, all right, so well, they go back and forth on this. Now they're back in all right, we need to invade mode, right? And then JFK finally decides again to be kind of passive and say, you know what? We'll go and we'll just agree to the first letter's terms and send him a message. We won't even act like the second message even got to us.
What? You sent a second one? Oh, we didn't get that.
We didn't get that.
Did you send it overnight or?
Yeah, no, I didn't get it. Yeah.
This one right here, yeah, we definitely did not get that.
So all the while they were still preparing for an invasion, right? And it was really risky. This was this was the night where all the leaders of the White House like went home and said goodbye to their families because they were so scared. Because this is where they answered and said, "We accept the terms of the first letter." Basically saying,
I really hope they didn't say the first letter and then be like, "We never got a second one."
Right? It's just a letter if you didn't get the second one.
So that's why I hope they didn't say first.
But
Yeah.
so really, what it is saying when they do that is, we are not accepting your terms of the second letter, which, as the Soviet Union, you could see as like, all right, here's our chance to strike. And this is either we're going to do it or we're going to not. So this is why they call it Black Saturday. And not only that, but you want to go through the submarine issue that happened?
So that night, in the U.S. Navy were dropping signaling depth charges on a Soviet sub that was nearing the blockade. They were meant to be warning shots the size of a hand grenade, but the Soviet sub had nuclear warheads.
Which the U.S. Navy did not know.
Yeah. And the three commanders on board actually agreed to use, or they all three had to agree to use the warheads.
Right.
But only two of them did. Luckily, yeah, the third one opted not to. And that is actually still operating procedure, just not three, but two people for nuclear subs have to do that.
Dude. One guy.
Vasily?
Arkhipov.
Yeah, we'll see. Because Vaseline.
Vasily Arkhipov. I think.
Oh, Vasily. Oh, I feel like a dick now. I'm over here calling him Vaseline.
Vasily. Yeah. Dude, hey, how about a drink to Vasily? Vasily, whatever his name is.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for not blowing us up.
We appreciate it.
Because it would have been really ugly. I mean, that's just crazy. One guy argued with the other two guys and said, you know what, we're not going to do this. We're going to surface. We're going to contact Moscow and get new orders, right?
Yeah.
Because they had been given orders, like, if you're fired upon, you can use your nuclear warheads as long as the three commanders agree.
Yeah, and our dumbasses were sitting there dropping depth charges
well,
on them.
Yeah, the U.S. Navy didn't know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just crazy, and it's a situation that neither side's leaders knew about, but this was the closest I think we got to nuclear warfare.
Yes.
It would have been bad. Like you said, a third of the world's population could have been died. Could have been.
They could have been dead.
Could have got. Could have get.
Yeah.
Could have get.
That was crazy.
So, on top of crazy Black Saturday, Castro at this time is just going out of his hair crazy, and he sends what we call the Armageddon letter to Khrushchev and the Soviet Union. Basically saying, you know what, guys? Here's what we need to do. We need to strike first. We need to go blow up the U.S. This is the only time we're gonna do it.
And that's when Khrushchev was like, "Oh, we fucked up."
Yeah,
he was really cool at the beginning. He was on board with our plans. Now it's like, fuck.
Right. And it's funny what happened later with Castro is. The Soviet Union sent a team of advisors to Castro, and this is well after the Cuban Missile Crisis, but they sent a team of advisors to Castro and had to show him the projection of the results of what would happen, right? And they're like, dude, we can't do this. If we do this, a ton of people are gonna die. It's not gonna be good for anyone. And then finally Castro was like, oh yeah. I don't know. They somehow convinced him yeah, we shouldn't do this. Which is I find a little funny,
Yeah, gotta love fucking Castro.
He learned at least.
Yeah. But yeah, so the whole thing, finally, the U.S. agreed they would move the nukes.
They gave in.
But what I thought was funny is that the Soviets had to do it then, and had to announce they were doing it, and then 6 months after we were like, okay, yeah, we moved the nukes.
Right. That was the agreed upon term, is that the U.S. had a 6-month delay in announcing that they removed the missiles.
Yeah, Khrushchev had to say he issued his public statement saying that they were dismantling and removing the missiles.
It made him look like a wimp.
Yeah.
It really looked bad on Soviet Union's part.
And then eventually we were like, we also did too.
But I think it's crazy because like by then it didn't matter as much.
Yeah,
it still mattered. It was still a big deal, but it was after the midterms, right, and all that. So,
but yeah, so only 13 days. This thing lasted. So we actually left the naval quarantine there until they removed their bombers from Cuba too. But then eventually, the whole trade embargo and everything on Cuba. Basically,
Cuban cigars.
Everything. Like, the entire world was shut off from Cuba.
I know.
Like, basically, Cuba is a time capsule of the 1950s.
It's not funny. Shouldn't laugh.
But I did see a thing that supposedly Fidel ordered 10,000 cars from, like, Alfa Romeo or something. They delivered the vehicles, and then Fidel never paid. And so it was like the largest car theft of all time. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
They're like, okay, that'll be $10 million. He's like, yep, go fuck yourself.
Checks in the mail. So yeah, but poor Cuba. Like, now Cuba's finally open for like international travel again. I mean, it's been a couple years now, but I would love to go there.
Nope. I'm not going to Cuba. No,
you don't want to go to Cuba?
Not after reading this.
Historical Blunders Podcast, live from Cuba.
Can we just say we're live from Cuba?
And we'll still be in my basement.
Your fucking ice glass.
This cup's a lot louder than the Yeti.
Yeah, I can tell. You know what I should get? I should get like a wrap thing to go around your cup.
Is that a thing?
I'll make one.
Okay, Mr. Engineer.
Quiet down.
I could also use a different cup.
No, but if you do want one of these fantastic shot glasses, all you guys got to do is leave a review on Apple Podcast. Send us a notification on where to ship your shot glass, and you get it for free. So just leave a review, send us an email, and free shot glass. You want to see what it looks like? Go check it out our Facebook page.
Okay, back to the episode.
Sorry,
because I do.
This shot glass is really nice.
I must stab
for
you.
So many.
They are very nice shot glasses, but no. I just wanted. I had a couple.
It's like a shot and a half. Actually,
it is a big glass.
It's not just a shot. It's like a shot and a half. For some reason, they're more.
I just think it feels like more.
Yeah,
because we were doing fucking schnapps out of them.
Yeah, schnapps.
But no.
They're also kind of square.
I'm gonna kill you. So, some of the consequences coming from all this, just things that happened. Because I don't really see this as a consequence, but better relations between the United States and the Soviets.
Yep.
Because at that time they actually put in like a direct line between the White House and the Kremlin. Which, I mean, clearly for this sake.
Dude, yeah, they were telegraphing messages through Western Union to communicate. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's stupid.
I think the story is there was a boy on a bike that delivered the final agreement papers to Khrushchev.
Dude, that'd be fucking awesome.
So if that kid got hit by a car, it would have been
here.
like kind of bad.
Yeah.
Big boom.
Big booms.
But yeah, they put the hotline in, right? Because of this.
Yep. And then also the Limited Test Ban Treaty was signed, which prohibited nuclear weapon tests or nuclear explosions underwater, in the atmosphere, and in outer space. Basically, you weren't allowed to test nukes.
What does a nuke look like in outer space?
I don't know. It'd be fucking awesome to see. Because, I don't know, the movie Armageddon looked really fucking awesome when they blew those nukes.
But you wouldn't see fire in space.
Yeah, there wouldn't be fire.
I wonder if it would still look like light, though.
Well, yeah, because of just the amount of energy.
I think it would just be light, and then it would be gone.
It'd be kind of cool.
It would be cool.
It'd be cool.
Dude,
blow the moon.
The SAR bomb that Russia has is bananas how big it is. Like, it's like wipe a state away of the U.S.
That's pretty cool.
Bad stuff.
So, I looked it up, the test ban treaty, to see if it was still actually, like, intact and, like, still enforced. since the fall of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But it looks like in the 90s they signed like a new one, so I'm guessing that's probably they were like, oh shit, we probably should sign with Russia to make sure they don't do that.
Yeah, it's funny because like Soviet Union was like really probably at its prominence during Khrushchev's time.
Yeah. And then it fell apart 80s.
And we talk about Chernobyl and how it did not go well for the Soviet Union at that time.
It did not. And like we said then, like that was kind of one of the contributing factors to the fall of the Soviet Union. And then also still I don't when I looked up consequences, it gave me all these, and it's really not it's basically just long-term effects of it.
Sure.
But also just the way the war ended and everything, both sides were able to kind of like still paint themselves as like the winner.
Right. A twist.
Yeah, like I was able to negotiate that, both of them, because they had to both agree. But like
at the end, but at first Khrushchev was like, look it, guys, I tried to put something somewhere and it didn't work. But then later he was like, but look at, we got the missiles taken away from Turkey.
That was my plan. we never actually shipped the warheads. We just told them that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was the
thing.
Crazy 13 days.
Yeah, it was probably sucked to go through. It's a lot easier to talk about.
You always hear about the Cold War and everything. Basically, it just lasted like the entire time of the Soviet Union.
And not to mention too, but this wasn't the only time that like a nuclear crisis happened.
Yeah.
So there was other times too. Actually, in the 80s, shout out to Tyler, notified me that in the 80s there was a time where there was a blip on a radar in the Soviet Union where they thought that missiles had been launched from the U.S. at the Soviet Union, which is like, oh no. So the Soviet Union guy was about to press the button to launch a nuke at the U.S. and like was right there to do it, like had his finger over the button, and they ended up not doing it, but like they got super close. Turns out it was just like the wrong kind of like flock of pigeons. Like had just apparently
the geese are flying the wrong way.
Happened to give a signal like they looked like a ballistic missile, and
that's a big ass fucking pigeon.
It was apparently super close. Like they were about to press the button, and
now I'm really questioning the Soviets' technology.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is it's
a pigeon's similar to a ballistic missile.
Yeah,
fuck.
It's so scary because you're really relying on a person there,
and that's the sad thing is that it's been just a person. One person deciding the fate of humanity. Dude,
yeah, it's intense. It probably sucked to live because it's like we still have the same threat now. Like a lot of countries have nukes now, but it's different now. There's probably a lot more control in place. You're not as scared as we were during the Cold War. Where it's almost like you probably couldn't trust your leaders then.
Also, I mean, we still can't.
Well, true. But like, I don't think they're going to blow us all up, at least.
I just think now people are just desensitized to it. We're just like, fuck it. End it. Push the button.
Yeah.
Give me the button.
As long as I can look at TikTok until it comes.
As long as I can see some boobies.
Doom scroll.
Doom scroll. That's going to be the next trend on TikTok now.
No, but if you guys enjoy the episode, make sure to leave us a review. Leave us a comment. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all sorts of stuff. Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Our next episode is going to be on Luna Park and other amusement park disasters.
I'm excited for this one.
All right. Well, I think that's it for us this week.
Yep. I'm Nate.
I'm Jake.
Fuck you, bitch.
Have a nice week, guys.
Bye.